You're here today to go back in time, to think about a different economic condition, social condition, and about everything we do in economics about individual choice. You're here to think about someone who at age 13 had to make the choice to live every day. And this is our speaker, Channy Laux, who grew up at age 13 in 1975 in the Cambodia Genocide. So put away those laptops. Put them away. Put away the technology, because that wouldn't have been in your choice set. You guys are here. You're well fed. You're well dressed. Think for a moment about what it would have been like to be in Cambodia in 1975, to be tortured, to think about every day dying, or more exactly, to think about trying to live every day. We're going to hear from Channy's story. She's going to share her experiences of that event. Following this lecture, the Q&A begins around 6:30. If you've got a 6:30 p.m. class, you're invited to leave at that time. And at 6:30, the sign-up sheets will be reposted on the table. So if you didn't get a sign-in, they'll go up again at 6:30. We are going to have a barstool meeting afterwards. If you don't have a class after 6:30 and you want to join Channy, the speaker, and some of our faculty, please join us at Flames. Come by, have a little bit of pizza, have a little bit of beer, and talk some more about a period of time that many of you don't know anything about. Thank you. Let's bring up our speaker, Channy.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ortega. It is a pleasure to be here, and thanks each and every one of you from taking time from your busy schedule to be here with us. I am honored. Today I'm going to share my story of how my family and I survived the Cambodian genocide. A little bit about Cambodia. Oops. Something. Cambodia is a small country in Southeast Asia, and it is about the size of state of Missouri. And in 1970, when the Vietnam War overflowed into Cambodia, a group of guerrilla soldiers rose up against the government in power. And those troops of guerrilla called themselves Khmer Rouge. And the Khmer Rouge was backed by Communist China. And the government in power at the time was backed by the American troop. So between the Khmer Rouge and the government, there was civil war for 5 years, last 5 years. And at the end of that 5 years, also at the same time, the American pulled out the troop from Southeast Asia, is when the Khmer Rouge took over the country. What they did the following 4 years is a crime against humanity. They killed an estimate of 2 million Cambodians. You know, when you think about it, the number, what does that really mean? 2 million Cambodians, that's like 1,400 people die each and every single day for 4 years. Can you imagine, you know, waking up every morning, you hear a new report say, today there's 1,400 people were killed. And then that news report repeated every single day for 4 years. I lived through that. Many Cambodians lived through that. And not everybody in my family make it alive. Nowadays, more and more people are aware of that genocide, but not that many people know much about Khmer Rouge. what they believe and what they stand for, and why did they kill so many of their own people. So Cambodia was a country that colonized by French, and the word Khmer Rouge is a French word meaning Red Cambodia. And the leaders of Khmer Rouge believed that communism is a better way to govern the country, better for, govern the country and its people. So these are picture of the leader. You see the first row is what is known as the Comrade Number 1, which is Pol Pot. He responsible of killing those many Cambodians. And you see in the background is an image of his idol, Karl Marx, and a symbol of communists, which is hammer and sickle. They believe that capitalism is the cause of human inequality and suffering. I remember, I was a young teenager then, 13 years old, but I realized that the kind of question that they posed on us in the society at the time was a moral question. The question that stuck in my mind and made me feel guilty almost, even for that young age. They asked the question, is it fair to have so many people working so hard, long hours, sweating all day long, and hardly make enough to raise their family? And to do that every day for a few men who never break a sweat in the day. And that question affected me deeply. And I remember feeling guilty that I am benefiting from that, from the success of my father's business. I look at my father and I see that it's true that he's in his office and not, in the street working, breaking a sweat in the field. So I felt guilty for that. But then I don't know everything. I don't know how to solve it, but I know something has to change, but not sure what it was. But what the Khmer Rouge did is they want to make sure that everybody in the whole country, every single individual are equal, financially equal, wealth equal. So they would proceed by eliminating rich and poor. So there's no rich and no poor, everybody live happy. And to do that, the very first thing they did was eliminate currency. They closed bank, and they closed business and market, because those places will introduce boss and worker, and that's not fair. And they went on to close school, like even hospital, even place of worship, because to them, those institute representation of capitalism, the corruption, is only do nothing but, generating more people that are lazy, didn't spend, never make a living by physically working in the field or helping people physically. And they also look at things like technology advancement as a symbol of capitalism. So what did they do? They destroyed it. So they destroy building, they destroy farm equipment. And to do that, they basically wanted to introduce like a classless society, a society that everybody work in the field and everybody will be given the same ration. And that's what they wanted. That extreme idea of changing the society from capitalism to this, agrarian society. In order to do that, they have to make sure they have control of people's life, each and every one of us. So the very first thing they did was to confiscate gun from everybody, including the citizens and the former regime. And basically, if you were fighting for the opposite regime, you would be executed without any question. And then they proceed to evacuate people from a home. If you live in the city or small villages, you will be evacuated to remote countryside. I remember when that happened, I was still sleeping. I was woke up by gunfire, and it sounds like they were right in my house, screaming and yelling, and I hear gun all around me. And I woke up and, looking for my mom. Everybody was screaming downstairs. I was upstairs. And in less than 5 minutes, all of us was pushed out into the street. There's no time for packing. There's no time for question. There's no time for pleading. So in the street, I saw there's a lot of everybody packed in the street in front of our house. And we were pushed to move from the city, walk, on that big street, busy, packed. And the more we keep walking away, and then they would push from what I call, the civilization. Because after towns and towns are walking all day, we were pushed to get off the asphalt highway. And to me, it was a symbolic of what's going to happen. Why are we doing this? And, when we step into a small village, everything was completely different. This is the second day after they took over. I used to have a house, live in a house just like not much different from everybody who live in the city, where we have electricities and beds and bathroom. But in this small village, everything is different. Even the people are different. The way they dress are different. They act different. They talk different. They were so remote. They didn't want us there, and we didn't want to be there. But we didn't have any choice. And then in that remote villages, every one of us was forced to work long hours without hardly any food and no break. Just imagine yourself waking up the next day and everything that are familiar with is changed completely. You'll never have an opportunity to, have choice, have freedom, or your life's changed completely. And not only that, you're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow. And when I said that, you're probably thinking about yourself. But that's the least you worry about. The main thing that worry all of us when we're in that situation, when you find yourself in that situation, is about what's going to happen to your loved one. So at this time, they targeted anybody who didn't make a living out of physical labor. So they attacked not only the educated and the intellectual, but also the businessmen and the priest and the monk alike. Because to them, those are the lazy people, the corrupt. And this is a picture of my parents. My father was a businessman. But he, you look at that picture and you probably think that, he was grew up in a rich family. That is not the case. When he never had a chance to go to school, because my grandfather was a refugee to Cambodia. he was escaping the communist China. And being a refugee in Cambodia during that time, there is no program to help you from the government or from anybody. So the fact that he was able to escape the Mao Zedong and stay in Cambodia was a blessing. So he started his life over. And in order to do that, he put his children, the oldest children, to help with bringing food on the table. And my father was one of that children. He never spent a single day in school. So neither did my mom. She was an orphan when she was 14. And again, in that part of the world in that time, there is no social program to help you. So both of my parents work hard, and they succeed. Because Cambodia during that time, before the communists took over, it was like in this country where you work hard, you will succeed. And it happened. And they work hard. And eventually, right before the communists took over, my father was able to own an import and export business. But as soon as the communists took over, everything that he worked hard for was confiscated from him for the sake of wealth equality or spreading the wealth. So soon after, like a couple weeks after they moved us from our home, we didn't have a choice, but we stay in people's house, packed, but then we had to make our own hut. We used to live in this two-story brick home, and we moved into this place that I had drawn by memory. And it's basically about the size of 3 queen beds put together for 13 of us. Basically it's a hut made from grass walls and grass roof and bamboo floor. And the cooking area is on the dirt. I had it drawn because even though it's such a small place compared to what we had, it's still a special place in my heart because it's a place that we pray for each other and encourage each other to not give hope. And we had each other as a family, helping each other. And it's the last place that we were allowed to be together as a family. In this place, I remember being starved to death, basically. I woke up feeling the hunger, feel like an animal with a claw scratching my stomach inside. And I feel sick. I didn't want to get out the hut, but then you don't have a choice because everybody has to work. If you're not working, that means you're not contributing to the society, the new society, and you will be targeted. And you might think, I don't care, but if you don't care, then, when they targeted you, your family will be in risk as well. So even in this starvation, hunger, I had to step out of my comfort of this hut into the rain. And if you're familiar with the monsoon season in Southeast Asia, it's rain relentless. Just keep coming and cold and nonstop, 24 hours a day. And in the field, we would be working without any break, any food. And when we came home, there's not much to eat. Our ration kept reduced to the point that we were given 1 tablespoon of rice per person per day. Can you imagine that? So at first, we collect all the vegetation in the tropical area. There's a lot of other wild vegetables that you can put together and, starting to fill up the stomach. And I would do that and bring things from the field, and my mom would help us cook. But even that vegetation is it's sparse because everybody's hungry. So everybody grabbed it. Eventually, we didn't have anything except the river water keep adding to the rice broth. And my mother refused to add any more liquid into the broth, so she decided to give us ration among us. And we watched her closely because we wanted to make sure that each one of us have the same ration. And she would do that, with the ladle, and we all sit quietly. And there's something left. She did it the second round, and when it's her turn, she stopped. And she would give her ration to my dad. And then she would always say, "This kind of thing affect man more than all of us." And I remember, how can he took that from her? I remember being angry at my dad, but my dad took it from her. But I wouldn't dare say anything except one of my older brother did say something, and he said exactly what I was thinking. How could you take that from mom? And before my dad can even reply, my mom said, "Please not like this. Don't let them affect you this way. We are better than that." So it was my mom that saved us, keep the humanity within us. Make sure we have our dignity, because if we survive, even if we survive without that dignity, it would be hard to stand out here and share with you, even though it's not our fault. So many times I thought, this can't happen too long, because the world will not watch us suffer. Yes, the American will come and help us. My family that, left the country before the communists took over, they would do something to give us hope, help. But then, days, weeks, the starvation keep going on for months. You'd be surprised how your body lasts without anything to eat if you're given enough water. So I lost hope. The only way that I can escape from hunger is when I'm asleep. And when I woke up, I blamed God for bringing me back. I blamed myself for not strong enough to commit suicide. I didn't want to live. It was too painful. And I blame the men around me. Aren't they supposed to protect us? The weak, the old. Why are they such a coward? But what would you do, right? If you protest against them, your family might be executed. So you listen to them and you do what they tell you. And by the time you realize that they don't care, that it's better to die than to live, you didn't have a strength to protest with them anymore because you're weak. And that's how the Khmer Rouge control us, with fear, food, and humiliation. So, this has happened couple months after they took over the country, and it went on for about 4 months, starving. And I live, you would think that's the worst part, right? But I'm sorry. I had the next worst thing was they separated us from our loved one, and they would come. Thank you. First, they would come and take my older sibling away from our family, and I, being a young girl, thought that oh, I'm safe because I'm too young for them to take me away from my parents. But that's not the case. After a couple weeks after they took my older sibling, they came to get me. And I remember at the time, I was in the field when they came to get us. It's almost like I was being hypnotized. And there's no protest, there's no question, except to follow the soldier with the gun in front, on their shoulder. And I remember trying to communicate to my father. He was working in the field, but he wouldn't look at me. He refused to look at the image of the Khmer Rouge took his baby away from him. And I pleaded in my heart to say, look at me, Dad, you may never see me again. But he wouldn't turn around and look at me. And then I got to my hut, and this hut was empty because my mother was sick. They put her in the sick house. They call it hospital, but it's a place where they don't really treat you. If you are not able to work, that's where you're at, and they give you less food to eat. You either recover naturally or you die. So I had nobody to cry to. And I remember that I want to see my mother last time. I went to the sick house, and she knew when I show up shaking. And I couldn't say anything because you're not supposed to cry out loud. If you cry out loud, that means you don't like what the government gave you. And what they gave you in their mind is the freedom to be away from the corrupted parents. And when I show up, my mom knew what's going on, and all I remember was her petting me and scraping the mud out of my forearm. And I remember thinking, why don't you cry for me? She didn't cry. It's almost like her tear was dried up. She cried so many days for watching her kids suffering. But by the time I leave her, I never thought that I see her again. She couldn't cry anymore. And they took us to a field that is the first labor camp I experienced. And when I talk about the labor camp, the image of a labor camp is nothing like you would imagine with wall and barbed wire. It's basically an open field. And what they control you is fear. And in this open field, I learned the first time that all individuality is all stripped away from you. There is no my or yours, or there is no even name. You're a comrade. Instead of, my nickname is Little Girl, and I was being called Comrade Lil. And everybody is a comrade. And everything belonged to the government. And the love that you should have should happen only between you and the government. It's not you with your comrade. And they forced marriage, talking about option, talking about freedom. You don't have any freedom. Your obligation is to make the best for the government. Because the government provide, and the government give, and the government own, for the sake of equality. Also, in this first camp that I learned that, it's a crime to keep our hair past our shoulder. So if you go on the internet And if you search for the victim of Khmer Rouge, you will see picture of woman and girl with short hair. Those are not by choice. Those were the law of the land. And I remember, even though I was just crying, leaving my parents behind and not sure if I ever see them again, I remember this message that I had to cut my hair shocked me. It's almost like stop crying. And the thing that shocked me was that what else are they going to do to us? Even the length of our hair is being controlled by the government. What else are they going to take away from us? So when I put this presentation together, I tried to communicate that message to you. And when I came across all this girl, I actually cried. Because if you look at them, they're so young, but these are the criminals to the Khmer Rouge. And their crime is probably stealing food or born into a family that have different ideology. And I look at them and I ask for forgiveness that I will use their picture to share with you. But also, it's people like, those people that died, like this girl and many like them, and my family as well, are the reason I'm here today and continue to open up and telling my story. Also, when I look at them, I remember the time that I commit a crime. And when I was caught, I determined in my mind that I don't care to die. I'm not going to do what they tell me. So when I was caught, I looked at them in the eyes and didn't do anything they tell me. And what did they do? They struck. I was hit and beat in front of my mother. I was unconscious. And when I realized what brought me back to this world was the scream of a mother watching the baby beaten unconscious. Because I couldn't feel the pain anymore. I was determined that I don't care. They can kill me, but I forgot that my mom had to watch this. So when I hear her cry, I said, not like this. If I'm gonna die, not like this for my mother. So I fought to come back. And my crime was I escaped the labor camp to be with my parents. But when you've gone through all of that, you wonder what made you want to live. And to me, it was a few things. When I came across the fact that even, the length of my hair is being controlled by the government, I realized that maybe so, but they cannot do everything, because at that time when they lined up all my friends to get their hair cut, they tell me that I don't have to. They can't cut my hair because my hair is already short. This is a picture of on the left, a picture of me in April 1975. In February. In April, they took over. So it's 2 months before they took over, I took this picture on the left. And because my hair was already short, they can't humiliate me in my mind. They can't control me 100%. The situation allowed me to be feel the victory that they cannot control me 100%. And in fact, this little small victory, spawn out the ideas that it's true that they can't control me. I am free. I am free to think and choose, to live or not to live. I'm free to think. They cannot control my thinking. They may make me say things that they want to hear, and I did say it, but they cannot control me. They don't know who I am. And in fact, they never got a chance to humiliate me for that 4 years, because my hair never grown for that 4 years. The picture on the left is me right before the communists took over, and the picture on the right is me in the Thai refugee camp. The same length of hair. I never cut my hair because there's not enough food and not enough nutrition. In fact, many of my friends and sisters that older than me, their menstrual period stopped completely. So I am, sharing this story with you, and as I share, it's not the other thing I was thinking about that. What made me want to live. You remember I told you when I was starving, when I was with my parents, I wished to die. I wished to die. Please take me out, don't bring me back. But when they took me away from my parents and put me in the labor camp, I remember pleading with higher being to keep me alive. I wanted to make sure, I wanted to give a chance that to die with my mom's arm for her sake. My best hope is to die in her arm. And that's what I live for, because she deserved that much. I don't want the Khmer Rouge to take that away from her. Because many times when I was working in the labor camp, the situation was very hard. It's easier to give up than to live. And believe it or not, you can't decide if you give up or live. So you can decide to live or not to live. In those times, I remember, they keep moving us closer to the jungle. And when I say jungle, it's real jungle. It's like, I remember working in the field where I can see things moving, and I thought, why is the rocks moving? But it's not the rock. It was snails and crab, little critters, but they have so much algae on them, but that long. So when they move, the algae seems to move. And that's because the jungle has not been touched by anybody for many years. And that's what they put us. We were in that labor camp. We woke up before the sun come up, the whistle blow, and we walk into the rain, and the water would come across our chest. And when we get to the work site, our job was to clear the jungle, a patch of jungle, so that they can plant rice. And it takes us about 3 hours to get there. We work for 2 hours, and then, have a little break, and then take us 3 hours to come back. So it's not efficient at all, but they didn't care. It was the working in the field was not production, it was torture. And I remember while we were working, sometime I heard people that used to work used to be like a farm worker. Those are the people that the Khmer Rouge fight for. I remember some of them said, in the past, in the old regime, I can at least buy a new clothes once a year, but in this regime, there's nothing. So it's like the communists want everybody to be equal, but not raising the poor or lowering the rich they actually loan everybody lower than the poor. And on those long days when I came back home, it would be night, and they would serve us food, and the food would be like on the muddy floor where we sit down in a circle in the dark, and the mud would come up past my ankle. And we have a rice broth with a little salt broth in the middle that we, eat with. And then after that, we'll go to a sleeping area, and our sleeping area is basically worse than the sleeping area. We had to walk through the muck, the cow manure in the mud, and get up on the little bamboo steps to stay on the rack above the cattle, because that's where we sleep. They build a shelter between the roof of the cattle, and the cattle would stay below us. And as we sleep above the cattle. And sometimes the rain would come sideways, and there's nothing to protect yourself, but sleeping in the rain. When the wind blows so hard, bring the rain sideways, and we're all soaking wet. And I remember some of my friends would just continue to lay flat, straight, and for some reason, it seemed so little, it seemed so humiliating to me to keep laying like that. I would get up and hug myself. I hug my knee and pray and hope that if I think hard enough, my mom can feel me. And if she can feel me, she gave me strength to survive just a little longer so that we live for each other. She was one of my motivation to live. Well, I am very grateful. Like in 1979, when the Vietnamese troop invaded Cambodia and the Khmer Rouge retreat deeper in the jungle, that's when my mother and I and my sister took the opportunity to escape the country to Thailand. And basically 2 months later, we found ourselves in Lincoln, Nebraska. So the shock from that jungle, that living condition to Lincoln, Nebraska, was as bad as the shock leaving our house to go to the jungle. But it's for the better reason, right? We came here with the help of Lutheran Church and UNICEF, and of course the American taxpayer. So I am very grateful for the opportunity that I received from this country, a second chance of life. The system that I think it's helped me a lot is promoting individual responsibility, a community that encourage independence and growth at your own pace. All of that I felt like I achieved is because of what I received in this country. And the fact that I've gone through the communist Khmer Rouge make me feel like I can handle anything. I don't wish it to happen to anybody, but in a way it made me a stronger person. So when I got to Lincoln, Nebraska, I was told to go to school, and I thought, I didn't, in that 4 years in the communist, it's not just starvation and sickness and fear, but also everything had changed. In 4 years, I have not spent a single day reading or writing, and they want me to go to high school? But I was told that's the law of the land. If you're a teenager, you have to go to high school. So that law is much easier than the Khmer Rouge law. So I did, and I got a lot of help from my ESL teacher, which is English as a second language. And it's just one day at a time. With the flexibility of the education system in this country, it allowed me to grow. It allowed me to learn at my pace, at my own pace. And eventually I graduated from high school, went on to University of Nebraska, received my bachelor degree in math and computer science. And my first job was software engineer at Rockwell Collins, where we helped build a head-up display for jet fighters. And then I moved on to Lockheed, working on their satellite system. And then after I stayed at Lockheed, I have my children, and I decided to take some time off. And while I was taking time off, I went to school part-time at University of Santa Clara and received my master's degree in applied math. And then I went back to work at Northrop Grumman for the Global Hawks and on their mission satellite, and in BAE as a system engineer in future combat systems. And I switched from the defense industry to biotech industry. That's when I started working at Becton Dickinson, BD. We built a flow cytometer, which is an instrument that takes blood sample and diagnose that sample and help doctor diagnose cancer and treat cancer patients. And it was at BD that I started to realize that at certain level of your career, you see that the time is right, that you know as much as other people. So the only way to learn more is to get together. And I went on participate in International Council of System Engineering, where I was a president of the Bay Area chapter. And then two years ago, when I lost my job, I decided to complete my book. And I published Short Hair Detention. And also started my own food business. So I'm telling you all this not to, give myself a pat in the back, but to share with you how much I am grateful for the opportunity that I received in this country and the chance. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't the flexibility and the support from the friends and colleagues. And also, if you're like me, you might think that, oh, I'm not gonna, which I have been thinking myself before, like, I'm not gonna go too far because my English is bad. And my English is still bad, but it's okay. I felt that we don't have to be perfect to achieve what we want to do. And that every one of us is stronger than we think we are. When before the communists took over, I was the worst student in math. But when I came here, I didn't have any choice. I wanted to be practical. Math was easier language for me than English, and I focused on that. So my food business actually last year received the Sophie Award, which stands for Specialty Outstanding Food Innovation, which is given by the Specialty Food Association. They're the sponsor of Fancy Food Show every year in San Francisco Moscone Center. And they have a lot of participation, like I think it's like 1,500 exhibitors and 80,000 participants. And to be able to just start a business and receive that award it was good for, for me. It's built confidence, and here I am today. I'm grateful for that. I also wanted to let you know that my book, published in 2017, received 2 awards. One of them is Independent Book Award, which is an international book award for independent author. So I'm grateful for that. And I also received book award from state Nebraska, because I was a refugee there when I started in this country. At this time, I just wanted to say thank you to Dr. Ortega and the Provocative lecture series to invite me to share my story with you. And I'm grateful to be here. Feel lucky that I am here, standing out here, to share with you my story and to share with you how my family had been affected by communism. My grandfather was escaping the Chinese communists, and I'm escaping Cambodian communists. I hope my children never have to escape any communists. Thank you very much.
Take questions now, and just raise your hand and we can circulate the microphone. I wanted to let you know that the book that she mentioned is available for sale outside if you wanted to get a copy. All right.
Hi, my name is Julian Parrish. Just had a kind of light question on how you made your way from after you graduated in Nebraska over to California. What inspired you to come over to the West Coast?
Well, I graduated from UNL with a degree in math and computer science. So not just me, everybody graduated from UNL with that engineering degree. We always go to different state, at least at that time. Now it's getting a little bit better. It's because that in Nebraska there aren't that many corporate engineer that require engineering job at that time, which is 1982 or 87. Sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Someone else? Oh, you must have some question.
My question is, how long after you came to the U.S. Have you gone back to Cambodia, and how long after you came here did you go back, if you went back?
I had thought about going back to Cambodia, but I have never gone back. And some of my family had gone back, and they encouraged me to go back. And I, every time I get close enough to almost buy the ticket, my stomach feels sick. And everybody gone through the same experience, come out differently. It affected me a lot more than some of my family members. So for that reason, I'm not going back. Instead, I choose to share my story by publishing my book for people to know what's going on.
Do we have a question up here?
Yeah.
Hi. First of all, thank you for coming out here. That's an incredible story. My question is, how do you feel about the modern wave communists or people advocating for communism today?
To tell you the truth, I don't hear so much communism advocate, but I hear of socialism. And to me, I listen to it, they aren't that much different. And I ask myself, what's the difference between communism and socialism? Because all the things that I hear right now is what I heard right before the Khmer Rouge took over. So I am fearful for the future generation, and for that reason, I am here to take a chance to share, to take a risk, to share with everybody.
Okay, I get to be the next question. So you did a lot in very technical engineering, typically in very male-dominated fields at Northrop and Grumman and all these high-tech companies. Did you ever experience sexism?
Absolutely. But, like, actually, it's many times. But again, I overcome it by saying, you're not going to push me away. You're not going to make me feel bad because I've gone through the Khmer Rouge. That always come back to me, making myself feel stronger and tougher because of what I've gone through. And in fact, it was very, I didn't feel that kind of toward me until I get stronger and bigger. When I started as an engineer, a little refugee came out of nowhere. I was fine. Everybody accepted me. But as I get stronger and being a more leader, taking more leader role, I felt it. And for that reason, I always wanted to make sure that my children, not thinking, I didn't feel like I could make an impact on everybody, so I just want to make sure that my children know what's going on with my daughter. And for that reason, I was gonna publish a book about, how to survive the engineering world, the high-tech world when you're a young lady. But then when my mom passed away, all that motivation is gone. I wanted to make sure that her legacy is continue.
Hi, my name is Dari.
Hello.
I have a quick question. Since you escaped the war and still experience a post-traumatic disease, and I assume that many fellow Cambodians who experienced the war had the same problem today, have you ever think of forming a community to support those people, or is there any community that has the program that you know of?
Yeah. Well, I heard of an effort to help the refugee from Cambodia who have survived all this trauma. But I myself, I have to say that I feel more blessed than I feel more a victim of. I am blessed to be here, giving a second chance. So for that, I felt like it's been helping me. But that doesn't mean I'm free from it. For many months when I just got here, all I dreamed about was being left behind by my family in Cambodia. And I would wake up and sweat. And it's go on and on for months. And eventually that dream went away. And then when I was working on my book is not like I started to write 2 years ago. I started the book as soon as I got here, first with my own language, and then eventually, gradually write it in English. And it seems like the book might help me in terms of what you're thinking about, how you adapt, how you get better, how you overcome. Because every chapter, every paragraph, I read with tears, and sometimes I cry, just to remember it. So that helps me. The book helps me. And being able to share my story also is another level of healing. Like some people go back for healing, and my book is, for me, it's my own healing. But it's not always positive, because people said, the more you share, the more you heal, you feel better, you're free from all that trauma. But the truth is, the more I share, not always, but sometimes after I talk to you guys, I would go home and cry. But I continue to tell, to share, because of all the people that died that never survived, include my father and my little brother. Every time I talk to you and I said 2 million Cambodians die, to me there's an image of people that I'm talking about. And my father and my brother are in that image. Thank you.
So what do you think when you hear people say stuff like, "Oh, but that's not real socialism"?
You know, again, it's like people said, even to me, you know, that's not communist. You know, the communist that I'm used to, it's not that bad. It's not like the Cambodian communists is something else. They're killing their own people and all that. Well, what I'm sharing is that, however you call it, but the start, the moral question that imposed on you, the guilt that placed on you, the goal that they want, is basically the same. How they execute it might be different. But I think at the end, from my personal level, it hasn't been good.
Here, I've got a question, Channy. So I've been lucky enough to hear you talk about this once before, and also I read your book. And one of the things that struck me was your feelings about the black shirts who sort of imposed this on you. So maybe you could, you didn't mention that, so maybe you could mention it to us.
So when I write the book, I want to write it from my memory, not from me as Channy, you know, I won't tell your age, but my age, but as an old Channy. But write it as a teenager, what I remember, what I feel. And as a teenager, we don't really get affected. We don't understand all the politics, all the different way of running the country. All I share with you in the book is my experience. And then the other thing I was thinking about is I will tell my reader, first of all, about exactly what happened. I'm not holding anything. If I hold something, it is something inside me. I'm not free from it. And I also want to share that I want my book to be, how you said, I didn't want to, okay, so the Khmer Rouge, every time I said the word Khmer Rouge, I had this bad feeling. This like they control me, they kill my, you know, all the people that I know, and so many other Cambodian. And I didn't feel like they deserve their name, deserve a spot in my book. And so, and when I was there, I also called them the black uniform. And so I carried that name that I called them when I was there. When I refer to them with my family, it's always the black uniform. The Khmer Rouge is what Americans call, is what the French call. And it's also imposed a whole bunch of other killing with it, which is the black uniform does that too. But I didn't want to have that spot in my book to capture, to give, you know, name Khmer Rouge. I couldn't finish the book without saying Khmer Rouge, so you'll find maybe 2 or 3 spots that I say Khmer Rouge as an introduction or something. And then also, if you read in the book and I mention somebody's name, even though sometimes, you know, when people read it, they come to me and they said, "Oh, that person is really bad to you. It's, you know, she's almost like conniving and evil. You know, she's have this up and down feeling. Sometimes she's nice to you, but sometimes she's so evil to you." But I put her in my book. Put her name in my book. If you find any character with names in my book, I respect them. Doesn't matter how they treat me. And how they treat me was the result of each person respond to the bad situation. That's how the Khmer Rouge make you feel or make you treat other. But as a person, I still respect them. I still love them. So I had a lady that was really bad to us, and I didn't put her name down. And when my sister reviewed the book, she said, "I know her name." And I said, "So do I. She doesn't deserve a spot in my book." Yeah.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
You said that some of the coercive power of the Khmer Rouge was to take away your identity. When do you feel yourself that your identity began to come back? How long, maybe?
I think my identity within my family is always the same. You know, it's that comfort zone. I'm still a little girl to my mom. I'm still a little girl to my sisters and my brothers. And for that, I think the fact that, you know, I escaped the country. When I got to Thailand, I felt like it's not safe enough. It's like, get me out of here, it's not safe. But when I was flying over the Pacific to America, I feel like I'm safe, that they can't touch me anymore. And I think that's when I'm really free of it. Yeah.
There's someone down here? Yeah. And then I'll get up there.
I'll get that one.
Hi, my name is Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
So I know how you talk about your appreciation for this country, you know, for giving you the opportunity to make a new life here.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you feel about all the people, coming from Central America, that are being part of the caravanas and seeking, you know, refugee and asylum, but they're not being given the opportunity that the others were able to have?
Yeah. Well, all I could say is I can't imagine what they gone through, right? It's hard, you know, because I am benefiting from being accepted in this country. And but I came here. Before I came here, my house was already rented for me. You know, there's a church that helped me out, paperwork that was already done, and it's hard. So I always go back to say, what would you do if you know, if you have to protect the, you know, like if you live in your house and you want to help people that, you know, live in your neighborhood, how do you pick and choose? And to me, when I have this, when it's not so black and white, you know, how do you choose between not let people in or let people in? I always go back to, what would I do if that's happened in my front door? And I believe that we have to help people, we have to help neighbor, but we have to do it with care, so that we would not let other people that you know, doesn't need help. And we have to balance it. We have to do it really quick, because people need help out there, need help right away, right? So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Mo.
Hi.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you very much for having the courage to come here and share your experience with us all today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks. And my question to you is, so we've seen the implications of communism in Cambodia. And as you had mentioned earlier, we're starting to see socialism blossom here in the United States, and it's worrying you and it's worrying me as well. And unfortunately, the most vulnerable segment of our population that's pushing these ideologies potentially are college students, or also known as millennials. So given your target audience here, as all of us were being college students, what do you tell us? How should we prepare for the future? And since we're starting to see a heavy footprint of socialism in the United States, how should we prepare for the future? And is there a way to shield ourselves from what's about to happen?
Well, I have 2 children, and they're trying to teach me what socialism is good for me. So they call it, I mean, they graduate already. But what I tell them is, be careful what you wish for. When it's too good, then it sounds too good, it's very, how you say it? If it's too good to be true, maybe it is not good, right? So, and I am taking a chance here. I don't think anybody, I'm not assuming everybody is socialism. I'm not assuming everybody is capitalism. I'm exposing myself for the sake of the future of this country and the future of the children, your future. So what I tell them is, imagine, just like I tell myself, when things hard to decide what's right and wrong, imagine if it happened in your house. What would you do? If maybe why some of your brother and sister think socialism is good, why you think capitalism is good, and just take an analogy of that and see if you like it in your house. If you have a household where your parents want to run your household as a socialism or as a capitalism, which one you like better and why you're not liking it, why you like the other. Does it help? Yeah.
I think she's asking you to do what the faculty at San Jose State and the Econ Department are always asking you to do, and that's to question and to think and to look up information for yourselves, guys. So I want to thank Channy here for opening herself up to getting your brains to think and to question. We don't tell you what to think, only that you need to think about your future. Thank you, Channy.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.